Joining us now, we have political analyst Professor Eric De Torres from the University of the East Political Science Department. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Welcome to Morning Matters and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Gretchen, and good morning to the followers of your program.
Okay, una ho, simulan po natin with a general overview of the political landscape. Patapos na po ang 2026 and 2025. Wala pa 2026. So much has gone on since the midterm elections in the middle of this year with corruption scandals getting unfolded left and right and popping up in various branches of government. Para po sa inyong pag-aaral, nasaan po ba tayo ngayon sa ating political history? Are all of these exposés part of us maturing as a democracy? Dahil nakikita na po natin yung systemic flaws. Or is this just part of another cycle of what we've seen in the past?
Yeah, actually, Miss Gretchen, it's like we're in a process of I think regression in terms of how we intend to look at the overall political system. Who would have thought that with all of this in front of us, mangyayari recently yung nangyari kay former Yusek Cabral. Ang dami nga nagsasabi, it's like a Korean K-drama, right? But beyond this, basically, is really the systemic problem or issue. We cannot just call upon and go to the streets of demanding accountability without precisely also doing something about changing our political system. Because, Gretchen, all of this is a byproduct of the kind of system that we actually have right now. So you need basically quality leaders, leaders basically who has a vision for the country, and basically this is a systemic issue that becomes a byproduct because of the actual system that we actually have right now. So it's really pushing for the much needed reforms eventually, but of course, pushing for that much needed reform means amending our constitution and changing our political system and pushing for electoral system for that matter. The question is, does this administration has enough political capital to push for that much needed reform? Secondly, it could either be a double-edged sword that could work for this administration, or could also be detrimental on the long run, because it's 2026, 2 years. We could relatively say that some would argue that he's geared towards being a lame duck president because it's only 2 years, right? On the other hand, we could also argue that, let's do it all in. Diba? Nothing to lose kasi hindi naman na siya pwedeng mag-seek ng re-election. Diba? So, we could again, at the end of the day, it's all dependent on how this administration would do the right thing for the country.
Well, it could turn out that way, with the president wanting to change their family's legacy, cement their legacy in another way. Yun nga rin mukhang ang naging simula nitong pagsiwalat ng flood control corruption, with the president leading the way on that. Pero ang problema, medyo parang bumalik po yata sa kanya given recent revelations. How difficult would that be? I mean, a real push for reform for the president, knowing that he is in the middle of the web. He is part of a political dynasty. Kahit mismong pinsan po niya, mismong anak po niya ay nai-implicate po rito. So, how much room does he have to move here?
That's the fundamental challenge, Miss Gretchen. Secondly, it's looking at it as such, the way that we intend to look at this whole expose with regard to, and the narrative is pretty much clear that, again, it's the president who actually exposed this corruption. But my assessment is that things gotten out was, very difficult to control because ang lalim ng problema pagdating sa usapin ng corruption at hindi na ngayon nila makontrol yung naratibo kasi nagsasanga-sangad because a lot of people are actually involved. I was actually listening prior to this segment with regard to the interview of Representative Ellie,
Elisa
and then
Fernando.
yes, and talagang ang naka-zero in na naka-focus is the leaks of the DPWH leaks. God knows kung gaano kalalim and sino-sino talaga yung involved. 'Di ba? So, ang hirap. Tingin ko it's a miscalculation on the part of this so-called expose on the part of the president. So, one thing to redeem, basically, it is to push for that much needed reform. Tamaan na kung ano yung tatamaan. And you're correct. Kung talagang magpupush dito sa reforma na to, ang unang tatamaan ay yung kanilang pamilya because tandaan natin na iilan lamang sila o isa lamang sila sa maraming pamilya na may dinastiya o miyembro ng isang dinastiya. So, yun yung isang pinakamalaking challenge on the part of the president. So, it's very challenging. Does he really want to redeem himself, change the perception, and create his own legacy by doing the right thing and pushing for that much needed reform for the future of the country?
And before we continue on, we have breaking news coming in. Rosana Fajardo of the ICI has officially resigned as Commissioner of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure with her departure effective December 31. Now, upon her departure, she noted that all primary objectives established during her appointment have been successfully fulfilled. And with this, the commission will transition into the upcoming year with a reduced leadership team of only 3 officials. That's Chairman Andres Reyes Jr., Special Advisor Rodolfo Azurin Jr., and Executive Director Brian Keith Hosaka. And they will continue to oversee the commission's mandate. Professor, what do you think does this mean for the ICI with figureheads resigning left and right? Of course, the most recent one, ito nga si Babe Singson, ngayon si Rosana Fajardo. Is this ICI effectively dead, or do you think may aasahan pa tayo dito?
Well, in the first place, Miss Gretchen, ICI to begin with was very problematic in the first place because it was created via executive order and it has no real powers. Secondly, the thing that I cannot really comprehend is why create an independent commission when in fact all other functions can be basically is a function of a particular government agency. So, bakit mo kinakailangan ng independent commission in the first place, di ba? Okay, sige, for the sake of argument, you want a clean slate, you want a body that has enough credibility. Pero paano ang magkakaroon ng credibility to begin with kung hindi mo binigyan ng tamang kapangyarihan, tamang resources, at saka tamang pondo to begin with yung komisyon. So, dun pa lang napaka-problematic. And secondly, why do I question it? Basically, it's the intention of not really being transparent. Right? Naging problema ng number 1 na problema na yan ng ICI. Gusto mo ng independent na komisyon pero hindi naman naka live feed or naka-open sa public yung
O
pagdinig
pwedeng
dun sa ICI.
mag-executive session.
Yes, exactly.
Lahat ng mga critical figures nag-request ng executive session.
Exactly. Naimbitahan nila si former House Speaker Martin Romualdez, pumunta dun yung mga iba't ibang personalities, even Representative Sandro Marcos was also invited, dumating voluntarily. Again, Miss Gretchen, these are all optics because at the end of the day, paano yung to begin with na sinasabi mong credibility kung hindi mo naman binubuksan sa publiko na wala kang transparency to begin with? You cannot say that this body is credible enough if you are not being transparent about it. So, dun pa lang hindi na ako magtataka. And of course, we could only second guess what would be the reason kasi sunod-sunod na nagsimula yan. Unang-una ay former Mayor Benji Magalong, who's basically doing a good job. Walang resources pero nagawa ng paraan ni Mayor Benji. And very recently, sumunod si former DPWH Secretary Babes, and then very recent ito, very shocking. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, wala nang credibility at
To continue on as a body. Oh.
continue on, and i-abolish na lang nila yan. And then and it's a very, very funny thing, Miss Gretchen, no, why create and push for a particular law of strengthening it by again creating another agency? I mean, again, dagdag na naman yan ng budget. Di ba supposedly form part na yan ng function ng existing commissions or existing governmental agencies like the ombudsman. Ang dami ng sangay ng gobyerno. Ang tanong lang dyan, it's just a matter of, again, credibility of these agencies of doing basically their job.
Pero kung titingnan natin kung saan nagsimula ito, no, I do remember that the Office of the Ombudsman was not as active as it is now. Hindi ganun kumbaga parang public-facing yung ombudsman, si Ombudsman Samuel Martires. Kaya marami ring parang mga kina-question na polisiya na lumalabas mula sa opisina na yun, katulad ng yung pagbabawal ng pagkuha ng salin at yung requirement na kailangan ng consent mula sa opisyales. Those hurdles to getting a proper investigation rolling, and kaya nabuo itong ICI. But with Ombudsman Remulla in his seat, do you think there is still a need to create an independent commission? Alam po natin, nakabinbin sa Kongreso itong People's Commission Act, Independent People's Commission Act, that would look into infrastructure anomalies. Mayroon po pa rin po bang need, or could we leave it to the current institutions that are provided for by the Constitution?
For me, it's much better to just leave it to the existing ones, because it's number one, as what I've argued, it's really form part of their
Mandate.
function. It's their mandate. Basically, it's just a matter of also putting public pressure to these individuals to do their jobs for the sake of the Filipino people. Kasi why need an independent People's Commission for this? You're creating another agency, another layer na popondohan mo, tapos mas pwede mo namang gamitin sa iba. Again, yung pagtiwala at yung paghina ng institusyon is a very form part and byproduct of the existing system that we have right now. Personality-based yung politika sa bansa, at we don't strengthen our institutions, but we enhance basically the power of still a very principal agent in, patron-client, culture. So, yun, na-enhance siya lalo. So, talagang we couldn't expect really that institutions will be strengthened with this kind of setup, and with the kind of enhancement that they've done in the budget, that tinaasan yung budget for this particular program na nagbibigay ng guarantee letters and so on and so forth. Hanggat merong ganyan, talagang hindi natin mapapalakas yung institusyon natin, at magiging dependyente yung ibang mga mamamayan at ibang mga kababayan natin sa mga politiko.
Well, Professor, marami na rin po nagbago. Katulad na lamang dito sa budget process that has been live streamed, the BICAM conference to be exact. Marami na rin, we are seeing the biggest education budget yet, 1.3 or 1.4 trillion pesos. What for you have been the bright spots in the political landscape that could lead to more systemic reform?
Well, of course, that's a good start to open the BICAM. But again, Ms. Gretchen, I think what's more important right now also, is the technicality aspect. Because, okay, merong BICAM, naka-live stream, naka-live feed, but yung common people ba can really scrutinize the bicameral conference committee? Because, again, sila rin lang din yung nakakaintindi yan eh. How do we, for example, create a mechanism that would, like, for example, specifically per agency, what is being proposed and so on and so forth. So again, there should also be, and for the sake of argument and for the sake of legislative reform, hanggang kailan lang pwedeng magpasok ng amendment, 'di ba? So dapat merong kang specific period of time. Second, we need to create a formula in terms of the allocation of budget per district
Dapat
and per
malinaw
need.
ho yan, no? Hindi dapat
Yes.
isang
Yes.
undersecretary lamang ang nakakaintindi
Yes,
nitong...
kasi ang nangyayari po, kung sino yung malapit sa kusina, sino yung kaalyado, sila yung mas malaki yung nakukuhang budget. So, hindi siya on a per need basis. So, kung magdedemand din tayo ng pagbabago, ng reforma ng sistema, dapat magkaroon ng klarong formula. For example, I'm seeing that let us put, for example, more budget like redistribution in terms of poverty incidence. For example, look at the human development index of a particular district. Kung talagang seryoso at matino tayo na sasabihin natin na gusto natin to, pero hindi eh. Yun yung pinangkakapitan nila dahil at the end of the day, kung sino yung malapit sa kusina at kung sino at and there are some studies already na recently the PCIJ nakita doon na yung member pa rin din ng House Appropriations Committee and the Speaker himself, yun, sila yung may malaking budget pa rin din na nakalodge dun sa kanilang district. So, how do you break that cycle? So, it's a continuing challenge basically that we should demand this to our lawmakers as well.
Actually, yun nga po yung itatanong ko sana, no? Kasi itong mga listahang lumalabas it would be difficult for the normal Filipino to understand. But how do we appreciate itong listahan na nilabas ni Congressman Leviste? Meron pong buong project ng DPWH, yung mga allocations per district, pero sinabi niya hindi naman daw sila project proponent. Yung mga kongresista ay sila yung representative ng district kapag nakalagay yung pangalan doon. No? So in terms of the formula that was used for that, I do know that poverty incidence was a part of it. Doon sa BBM parametric formula sinabi ng PCIJ. Yung nga lang, meron din parang mga leadership fund or leadership projects.
Yes.
A lot of confusion, ano? So how do you think this affects the pursuit for accountability that we're seeing lists like this with everybody involved?
Kasi, well, ang pinaka-problema mo dyan, kung talagang may sinusunod yung formula na may indeed poverty incidence, may they factored in, for example, human development index, ang tanong dyan, bakit hindi nasusunod? And bakit, kung titignan natin yung common pattern is kung sino yung kaalyado o yung quote-unquote malapit nga sa kusina, sila yung basically mas mapapaboran. Ano yung basis kung bakit malaki yung pag-allocate dito sa distritong ito versus sa ganitong klaseng distrito? So, yun yung, and definitely it would create and affect the credibility of the overall manner on how this budget was basically, created. Secondly, Ms. Gretchen, I also am not in favor of continuing budget for this matter because we all know for a fact that the very problematic yung 2025 budget. So, as it is, yun, we're really hoping for the best na mahabol ito. Kasi kung kahit papaano makikita natin yung 2026 to a certain degree, to a certain extent, na naibigay doon sa mga government agencies na mas nangangailangan talaga ng fund and prioritization in terms of education and so on and so forth. But hindi dito natatapos to. We have to ensure of strengthening our monitoring and evaluation, Ms. Gretchen. Like seeing to it na, okay, inilodge itong budget na to sa Department of Education. Gaano tayo kasigurado na talagang itong budget na to mapupunta dun sa pagpapagawa ng additional buildings and basically and so on and so forth. So, ensuring the budget is given to the right agency, but making sure that this project that they're implementing the budget properly is another.
Well, one thing is for sure, we have a lot of public accountability groups already coming forth, no, to help us with that. Meron po tayong mga Citizens Coalition, meron po tayong People's Budget Coalition, we have alternative voices na nagpapaliwanag ano ba talaga dapat at ano yung dapat makita dito sa mga numerong lumalabas. Pero with all of these changes, no, with Sara Diskaya going behind bars, with the BICAM process being live streamed and government responding to public pressure, do you think it has effectively extinguished any chance of a coup coming into 2026? What are the chances of the military withdrawing its support from government? Has that been settled? Or do you think it could still escalate leading up to 2028? Of course, 2 taon na lang po yan pagpasok natin ng 2026.
I think my forecast and my analysis of this is that the military will not support it. The military through the years has been very professional, and definitely the manner by which they really, if you look at and observe the military, they're very professional and they really abide with what is really enshrined in the Constitution, that they are really for the Constitution and protecting basically the Filipino people. So ako tingin ko nalagpasan na yung tingin kong critical stage, and once we reach by next year, in my forecast is that malalagpasan, matatapos nito yung term, and let's just see in 2028 this administration will be able to finish its term. The shocks basically, but the downside of it is that in any eventuality that the president or this administration would create its slate and make basically endorsement, it's a kiss of death on the part of that slate or anyone who would be endorsed by the president. So
But do you see the current administration coalescing with the opposition to fight against their strong contender of the Duterte? Of course, that's Vice President Sara Duterte. Do you see that happening? O medyo malabo yun dahil sa misalignment?
Actually, Miss Gretchen, it has begun. If you look at the spectrum right now, it's the rest versus the Dutertes. So yun yung makikita natin sa spectrum right now. So all other forces are actually they have well, of course, not formally, but in terms of looking at the positioning, they have already positioned themselves in a way aligned with this administration versus basically the Dutertes. So I will not be surprised if, for example, the manner by which we intend to look at the slate or whatever team that will be formed against the Dutertes is a combination or would be a rainbow coalition of whatever of these groups basically.
Well, we will get to see what happens in the coming years. In the meantime, let's have a good new year. Maraming salamat for joining us as we end 2025. On that note, we have political analyst Professor Eric De Torres.